Hello, Parry Sound High School. Hello, Parry Sound community. Hello, everybody who is on the interweb. Mr. Culham again. And this time I am joined by Mr. Loof, Parry Sound's favorite. So, Mr. Loof, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know about favorite, but hey,
Didn't
no
say you
comment.
didn't say you were ranked against anybody, just on your own list.
Yeah.
So, how is life? How is isolation life with the multitude of children that you have? A couple who are in the background making dinner right now.
It's pretty good. There's a lot of chores to be had, but it's quite honestly, it's nice. We're a lot more family time, game time, and stuff like that. It's just a few more things to clean up here and there. That's all.
Couple,
Yeah.
couple more kids to pick up after.
Yeah, a lot of food going through the house
Oh
because
no doubt.
they're home all day, and I think they eat half the day.
There's a real funny picture that went around the internet where the mother had just taped a sign to the front of the fridge that said, "You're not hungry, you're just bored."
Yeah, I've been thinking about putting a lock on the fridge door because I can't keep food in the house. It's crazy. Then they'll run away.
That would solve the food problem.
It
Uh,
would.
so now, because I've outed us for the fact that they're in there cooking, what's for dinner?
We're
What
having
time should I be?
we're having salad, and then we're having shake and bake pork chops, some broccoli, corn, scallop potatoes, and brown beans.
All right, cool. So just a little to-go package for me. I'll pick it up on my way by. It's no big deal. Uh,
Sounds good.
how has teaching phys ed been during this remote learning time frame? Because that's one of the courses where I'm really intrigued by it because you're not in a room, whether you're playing a sport or doing a health lesson or anything like that. It's so different. It's so like far off of what you're used to. How is it from the teacher side of things?
Yeah, it's just giving the kids individual kind of exercise programs, and then doing my best to do what they're doing. So, I expect them to kind of try to do 30 minutes a day. So I've been doing the same exercises they're doing here and there, and then yeah, it's done a bit of health work mixed in, but certainly, yeah, it might be a little easier than teaching some physics online. That's for sure.
I can never learn
I think,
physics, so I don't have to
yeah,
teach it.
I think of low in trying to do physics and math, and that's going to be a tough one for sure for the kids.
No. I told all my students at a couple different emails. I was like, after they've done their work in my French class, I would go to their classes and see, oh, they're behind in this course. I'm like, hey, if you need help with that, let me know. I got the time. I can help you out with that. Unless it was the science students, in which case I know that's where my limit is. I
Yeah,
cannot be of any help.
yeah.
I
Well, we
very much want to, but I can't.
yeah, here in our house, my daughter, she's getting tutored by her older brother, so in
There you
math.
go.
Yeah, so yeah, and then yeah, Jude's working, so it's usually me getting the kids to do the schoolwork and stuff
Gotcha.
like that. And yeah.
There you go. So I want to pick on you for your time before Parry Sound High School.
Did you
You got
see that? They
you
threw
got
stuff at me.
good for them.
Yeah, I'm the alpha male. Don't forget it.
Checks in the mail, boys.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's pick on about your time behind Parry Sound, before Parry Sound High School,
Yeah.
because you've taught in a couple other cool places that would be kind of cool to share to the people who might watch here.
Yeah, my first teaching was 3 years up in a community called Grassy Narrows. So it was an indigenous community about an hour north of Kenora, a community that's had a troubled past and still working through all the troubles that they've been put through with mercury poisoning in the river system there. So some folks probably have heard them on the news, and long battle for that community. So, but that was really formative. I loved it up there. Um, Great people, great community, and after that went to the Northwest Territories for a year, another Indigenous community in Raedzo, just outside Yellowknife. And then from there, once we started having children, we wanted to come back closer to home and closer to family. So that's where we've landed, is back here.
Yeah. So what took you to those two places specifically? Was it just a roll of the dice? You applied to some jobs and hey, we're going to Grass and Arrows, or was
Yeah,
there anything else that went into it?
yeah. No, I had always wanted to to kind of be up in the north. I liked the wilderness, things like that. And I think if we hadn't have had kids, I would still be up there, especially northwestern Ontario or Yellowknife. It was the isolation was nice. It's a smaller community. Yeah, easier
I
way of
have
life, I think.
I have a couple friends who, when we graduated from the Bachelor of Education program, became teachers. They said, "Oh, I'm going to go and teach in the north for a couple of years, whether it was Northern Ontario or out in prairies or even further up." And I'd say about 50% of them did. They taught for a year or two, and then they
Yep.
returned down to Southern Ontario. But the other half are still out there and have no intention of coming back. And they thought that it was going to be a temporary thing, but there's something about living up there and spending time up there. People just get hooked and they want to stay.
Yeah. Most of the people we met when we were in just outside of Yellowknife they would always tell the same story. They planned to come up there for a year or two. They'd make money, and then once they were there, they were hooked, and they didn't ever want to go back.
Yeah.
No.
It makes me think one of the favorite stories you shared with me about your time up there was the hockey draft, where it was like a men's league or something like that, and they picked you because you were from
Yes.
Ontario. They thought you'd be amazing, and what happens?
Yeah. So when I got to Grassy Narrows, it was in August, and one of the fellows from the community came up and introduced himself. Says he's one of the coaches. He says, "Oh, you play hockey, Jake?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to play hockey." And they have a community hockey league. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to draft you in the first round." I said, "Draft?"
It's a
I said,
big
"Yeah, yeah."
contract.
I said, "Hey, just so you know, I've never played hockey before." And he laughed at me, and he thought, no, big guy, from Southern Ontario, Canadian kid, played hockey. So anyway, he drafted me first game. I go out in the ice, skate around, come back, sit in the bench, and he leans over and looks at me and goes, "You were telling the truth. You've never played hockey before, have you?" Nope, never did. So it was
Uh, I think I was fortunate enough to see you skate once, and you were very giraffe-like. We'll go that way.
Yeah, I got a long stick, so that helps.
Perfect. Put you on defense. Just poke the puck. Try not to fall over.
Yeah.
So, where did you go to post-secondary? That's like one of the things I keep asking the teachers that come on this late for class thing, because we have a very unique circumstance for our graduating students this year.
Yes.
So I'm trying to get as many teachers to tell us where they went to post-secondary, and hopefully that helps kind of add some information to what these students may or may not know about these places.
Yeah, I went to Wilfrid Laurier in Kitchener-Waterloo. And one of the things I liked about it was, as much as it is a big school, it's certainly one of the smaller schools by our standards here in the province. So I went there, and then for my teaching education, I went to Nipissing, also another smaller school. And so my oldest son, he's followed in those footsteps. He's up there. He's back from Laurier as well. He's doing business there. I didn't do business there. So. It was a good school, good community. Yeah.
I remember when I was in grade 12, I had to apply to the universities, and I'm not sure if it's the same still, but for the price that you paid, you were allowed to apply to 3 universities. And I applied to 2. I applied to Nipissing, and I think I applied to Brock. And then I had one left, and I had to apply to it. And I'm so cheap, I wasn't about to let that spot go unapplied. And I applied to Laurier just because I was like, that's a cool logo.
Yeah.
Clicked apply, and then I got in. And I was like, oh, cool,
Nice.
maybe I go to Laurier. And I never did. I ended up doing all 5 years of my post-secondary up in Nipissing, and it's kind of how I ended up in this area here.
Yeah.
So we have a 4-day week coming up. What is the 4-day week have in store for Mr. Loof's classes?
Yeah, so same thing, expecting them hopefully to be exercising each day, recording it. At the end of the May, they're supposed to have set some goals for themselves. So we'll see at the end of May if they've reached those goals in terms of just getting their heart rate up, push-ups, planks, and just some individual exercises they can do inside the house and use whatever materials they can there. So, yeah.
Boy, am I glad I'm not in your phys ed class.
It's interesting. I'm getting some some really cool feedback from some of the kids about the things they're doing, and obviously some of them are doing their own programs, so that's awesome. And then earlier in May, we had a kind of a food nutrition assignment where they had to make a meal and balance it out using the food guide. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
There
we're
you
just
go.
focusing on staying healthy and reducing stress.
Why is it stressful? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Loof. Mr. Loof, thank you so much for helping me out with this video. We'll throw it up on YouTube later today so everybody can see it.
No problem. Stay well, everyone. Looking
All
forward to
right.
getting back.
Thanks, Mr. Loof.
Thanks, Travis.